All right, last one, number 71. We finally made it. I think this is the longest practice test we've had this whole semester. And the directions are to use the quadratic formula to solve the given equation. Solutions are real numbers. So we've been given 8x squared plus 5x minus 3 equals 0. And don't forget, the quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So first things first, let's identify our a, our b, and our c. A is the coefficient in front of your x squared term, so in this case 8. B is the coefficient of your x, so 5. And make sure you take the sign with you. In this case, both were positive, so we don't really have to worry about it. But here, C is negative 3, so you're always taking the sign with you. All right, let's take this information and plug it in. So we have x equals negative b. And you'll notice here that I'm using parentheses when I plug in. And that's important because if you take a look at question number 70, in number 70, b was negative, so we have a negative times a negative, and if you're not careful with your signs, you can make a little mistake here. So it's always best to use parentheses when substituting. All right, so x equals negative b plus and minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. All right, so x equals, and now let's go ahead and simplify and see what we have here. We have negative 5 plus and minus the square root. And we can do one of two things. We can either work this out individually, or you can go ahead and pull up your calculator and go ahead and put this whole thing in and see what you end up with. And just keep in mind that you're not going to be allowed to use this graphing calculator, but it's the only calculator that will work with the recording software. But your calculator, I'm not going to be doing anything fancy on this that you won't be able to do on your calculator itself. So we'll say 5 squared and then minus 4 times 8 times negative 3, and that's going to give us 121 over 2 times 8 is 16. All right, so now we have x equals negative 5 plus and minus. Well, what is the square root of 121? Well, square root of 121 is 11, right? Over 16. And now again, we're going to have two paths here, right? We're going to have negative 5 plus 11 over 16. Oops, and we're going to have negative 5 minus 11 over 16. So here, negative 5 plus 11, we're going to end up with 6 over 16, positive 6 over 16. And we can go ahead and, I guess I'll write it up here. So we end up with 6 over 16. We can go ahead and reduce that though. We can go ahead and use 2. So we end up with 3 over 8. Right? 2 goes into 6 3 times. 2 goes into 16 8 times. And here we have negative 5 minus 11. So we end up with negative 16 over 16. And then that, of course, reduces to just negative 1. So our two final answers are x equals 3/8 and x equals negative 1. It's usually not a bad idea. Go ahead and take both of these answers, plug them into your original equation. Make sure you get a true statement here. In this case, we do for both of them, so I'm not going to go ahead and do that. But on a test, it's probably not a bad idea, especially if you have some extra time at the end of the exam, 5, 10, 15 minutes. You know, don't leave early. Make sure you go back and go ahead and plug in those answers and just make sure that you get true statements. All right, so that is it. Number 71, we made it. I'm going to go ahead and do a little closing video as always. But if I don't see you in that video, I wish you all the best on this test. And make sure you're stopping by the PASS Lab or the SLC, depending on what campus you're on. And we will see you around. All right, best of luck, guys.